reducing the state's incarceration rate, and improving our health outcomes. Those priorities are reflected in my budget and in the policy proposals I'm most interested in seeing this session. Now, first, we need to talk about our state prisons. The situation in Oklahoma's prisons is very serious. Due to the revenue failure declaration of the Department of Corrections will run out of money this year before July 1st. To prevent that, the department would have to make cuts causing it to house prisoners in unsecured areas. It might have to furlough correction officers and have other undesirable outcomes. Correction officers put their lives on the line, and we have to help them. For the sake of public safety, we have to get additional money to the Department of Corrections. This budget proposes the Department of Corrections receive an annualized $20 million increased supplemental appropriation this year and a $10 million appropriation increase next year to address continued offender growth and to keep the public safe. But it's a fact that Oklahoma still ranks number 1 in female incarceration, and we consistently rank in the top 5 in male incarceration. Again, this has been a decades-old problem in our state. So today, I'm also calling for serious sentencing changes that will preserve public safety while keeping control of prison costs and reduce incarceration rates. Now that I have bipartisan support, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. Oklahoma's drug possession sentences haven't deterred substance abuse and have filled our prisons to overcapacity. These sentences, while well-intentioned, tend to send some of the most non-violent offenders into prison for years and years, where they live alongside violent offenders whose bad influences can make non-violent offenders worse. So this session, I'm calling on lowering Oklahoma's mandatory drug possession sentences. First, let's allow district attorneys to have the discretion to file any first-time drug offense as a misdemeanor. I know you can't believe it, Richard. Next, we lower the mandatory sentence from 2 to 10 years in prison for drug offenses, for non-violent offenses, to 0 to 5 years in prison. For second felony offenses for drug possession, lower the mandatory sentence from 2 years to life to 0 to 10 years. And for third felony offenses for drug possession, lower the mandatory sentence from 6 years to life with no probation to 0 to 15. For property crimes, let's raise the value of a felony crime from $500 to $1,000. The $500 benchmark has been in place since 2002 and it needs to be raised. A teen who steals someone's smartphone today could be branded for life as a felon because smartphones cost more than $500. 20 years ago, most cell phones cost less than $100. My 40-member task force of law enforcement professionals recommended these proposals, which, if fully implemented, could prevent thousands of people annually from becoming a felon for life, which makes it harder for them to get a job, makes it harder for them to support themselves, and breaks up our Oklahoma families. Our state prisons are at 119% capacity. We just can't keep doing what we've been doing. It's not working. We must also enhance law enforcement's ability to protect Oklahomans. We can make Oklahoma law enforcement stronger and more efficient while keeping the public safe by consolidating targeted law enforcement agencies. The second area receiving additional funds in my budget is the health and well-being of children through the Department of Human Services. This budget sends DHS $11.3 million to fully fund the Pinnacle Plan. It's important to keep our commitment for the sake of thousands of foster children who deserve better futures than what they would have otherwise. Last year, I launched an initiative called Oklahoma Fosters that encourages people to foster and adopt children in state custody. The Oklahoma Fosters program is working. That's the good news. One of our great Oklahoma families that answered the call to serve is the Siemens family of Tulsa. Brian and Chris have both stepped up to foster 7 children and to adopt 3, in addition to having their own biological children. They are hard-working individuals, community advocates, and have big, beautiful hearts. So I'd like to say thank you to Brian and Chris for helping Oklahoma's children. And I know that you're here with some of your children now. Would you please stand up? Thank you for coming today. Next, Oklahoma's future sits in our classrooms of today. The education of our children remains one of my top priorities in the budget, even in fiscal climates like this year. I support, and I know my fellow Oklahomans support, overwhelmingly giving our teachers a pay raise. This budget appropriates $178 million in new money for a permanent $3,000 teacher pay raise for every teacher in the state. And we can do it without raising the state sales tax to the rate that would be the highest in the nation.